Is the microphone on?
Yes.
Are we?
All right.
Hey.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another fine episode of The Hell With This. Mark Heiliger is dead and he's stuffed in the basement, and my co-host
boy.
Byron is taking a phone call.
Because, this is live. Hello? Hi. Are you outside? Did you park? All right. I'm going to go get her.
Byron is now leaving the apartment.
Now I'm leaving. Okay, I'm leaving.
And he's walking outside.
Come. You have to stand back by this directional microphone.
And we just started recording. We're already recording, so.
Yeah.
As of right now.
Oh.
But you gotta sit.
Mm-hmm.
Make some space.
Oh.
Make some space, Byron. Introduce
Gosh.
us. Who's our guest?
Welcome, Danielle. Everybody, my wife's dropped in. So tell me why Star Wars is your favorite movie of all time.
Okay. I'm guessing it's not.
I like it. I remember it. I remember the final scene when Leia's got her hair up with like the jewels on, and she's giving him like.
Oh, in the big banquet room or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it reminds me of childhood. It's probably not my favorite movie, but.
Well, that's true because Indiana Jones.
Have you seen that?
The Raiders is your favorite.
No.
Someone who.
It's the same. That's great.
Okay. So, what kind of movies do you like?
I think my favorite movie, one of my top favorites, would be Indiscreet. It's an old Cary Grant and Ingrid Bergman.
It's a good one.
Classy.
Woo! I thought you like to watch Catch a Thief, don't
Yes.
Rear Window.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I just watched that last week with Orla, and God, it's so good.
It's so good.
That might be my favorite movie.
Rear Window.
That you brought that up. I mean, if we did Rear Window on this podcast, because I feel like that's the Hitchcock. For me, that's the grand slam. And you like Notorious.
Yeah.
You like Notorious.
I have to ask you because Orla and I have like zero anything in nothing in common as far as like movies are concerned. Where do you guys stand?
Oh.
Are you always do you look at like what's coming out and you go, oh, let's see that, or do you just go, I want to see that, and then
You don't usually want to go to movies. I have to kind of drag you.
Really?
Yeah, because
it feels like work.
It
Byron,
feels
it's
like
your
you're
job.
doing work. Yeah, exactly. It is doing work. And I really wanted to see Alien Covenant, and it's like I can't get out there, and I desperately want to see the Blade Runner movie, and I want it to do well because we need movies again, and we need good stories, and so I'm excited, even though it's
I saw
just
3 movies this week. Since the kid
you've been
had
busy.
What did you see?
I saw. We saw Wonder Woman, which was super fun.
That was a lot of fun.
Even though I'm not I don't like them. I'm not into the superhero movies, but I thought she was lovely and great fish out of water and so strong.
Because we never go see
and
a
super
comic book.
attractive. Like she's so lovely. And then I saw Rough Night, which is hysterical.
And who's in Rough Night?
Is it basically just Hangover for?
But it's better. In my
really?
opinion, it's better because I think it's more fun to see ladies being raucous. It's
like
more
Bridesmaids.
unexpected.
And it got panned
It did?
by the critics. It got only like 55
What do
on
they
Metacritic. What do you
Oh,
think?
it did.
55 is not bad.
No.
Was it
But
really
I laughed
raunchy?
through the whole thing, and I went with a dear friend of mine who's like a
Well, then
writer
that's all
and
you
way
need,
into
yeah.
to film. And
Was it
she
like
laughed.
super raunchy or something? Maybe that's why
It's
it
just
was.
crazy.
So this is a good date movie. Then
Yeah.
honestly, if you're a guy and you're gonna take a girl out and
Yeah.
you want her to have a good time, then this is the one.
Or The Beguiled.
Okay.
I saw that's the other one I
Oh, that was
Or
that's
movie number 3.
Sophia Coppola.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, gosh, that one just sounds like it's gonna
I
be
haven't seen
depressing
any
to most
trailers
guys.
for, but
you haven't.
I've always liked her films, even the ones that got panned.
It's the same. Like it's the
Same style
It's
of.
like beautiful and slow in a good way. I think 'cause movies are so fast these days. Even kids' films where you're like, wait, what just happened? What are they saying? It's really fast. It's lovely.
And then Tarantino had a big event Didn't he? At his theater where he played the original, and then
Because it's a remake of.
and
The
then
Beguile?
yeah,
Coppola.
I
Clint
didn't
Eastwood
actually
was
know.
in the original, which I have no interest in seeing. But...
and it was back to back. In his trash house movie theater. Have you been to that theater?
The New Bev? Yeah.
Is it
I haven't
new?
been there for a while.
I've just heard that it's like, oh, he reopened the door, and like basically.
I haven't been there in a few years, and last time I was there, the seats were kind of falling apart. But it's been a few years, so I think it's probably good now. I'd imagine it's still kicking.
I wonder if he ever runs projection. I'm gonna say no,
Doubtful.
but that would be cool.
So, do you know what we're seeing tonight?
I want to see something scary because nothing says summer movie like a horror movie.
Do you guys like horror films or not?
How much do you love horror films?
I get really scared.
Well, then, I know. What was the one where you were the only one to scream out loud in a theater?
It was probably like a kid's movie. It's easy
Byron,
to
it was
scare me.
actually you. You probably just started screaming and...
I'm throwing Danielle under the bus right now, just like.
No, I don't like. They're all right, but I don't like one. I prefer like a suspense than like gore.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah. And me too.
Although I want to go see Atomic Blonde. I think that might be interesting.
It looks good. Would you call it a horror film?
No,
But just
but it's
suspense.
gory and yeah.
Well,
But
it's
I
like,
don't like people in the
Silence
woods.
of the Lambs, is,
Horrifying.
horrifying, but it's suspense. It's not,
Right.
I think this movie, it follows it. I love this movie. I thought it was great. It came out like 2 years ago, a year and a half ago.
I've just heard it over and over. I've not seen it. Yeah.
It stars
pulled my.
Maika Monroe, and basically just nobody you'd recognize. Probably.
That's great.
It was shot in Detroit, and so it has this dilapidated kind of like
Right.
feel to it because Detroit.
So they just moved in. Art department's done.
Yeah, pretty much. They probably shot the movie for nothing, but I thought they did a great job, and it's just like a
Detroit
really
paid them to
creepy-
come here.
Creepy movie with like kind of an 80s vibe to it, even though it's modern day. So it's just kind of a change of pace, but.
I can't wait to see this. Then I'm really excited because
Are you sticking around? Are you taking off?
I'm gonna take off.
She can't handle the.
Who am I
horror
gonna hold hands with? Well,
Chad.
I ain't holding your hand.
well, I've got two hands. I need to hold hands with both. All right,
Well, you got your side of the couch and all.
all right,
Watch.
good. Yeah,
We'll come back and talk about
this
it.
is the first in the new studio, so let's do this.
All right.
I used to daydream about being old enough to go on dates. I had this image of myself holding hands with a really cute guy, driving along some pretty road. It's never about going anywhere, really. It's having some sort of freedom, I guess.
Jay, you awake? You're not gonna believe me, and I need you to remember what I'm saying. This thing, it's gonna follow you. Somebody gave it to me, and I passed it to you. Wherever you are, it's somewhere walking straight for you. All you can do is pass it along to someone else.
I'm scared. I need to find him.
What did he really do to you?
Apparently, he used a fake name to rent a house in the city.
This isn't real, I swear to you, this is just some game.
If it kills her, it gets me and goes straight down the line whoever started it.
What exactly is supposed to be following you?
I don't know.
Something happened. It's not what she thinks, okay?
You don't believe me. Mom?
No, it's me. Everything's okay.
It could look like someone you know, or it could be a stranger in a crowd. Whatever helps it get close to you.
So were you in the class of people that hated it or liked it?
Oh, I blown away. Didn't know anything about this movie. Loved it.
Yeah?
I wonder how many people. I feel like I'm already the last person on the planet to have seen this, and I was the unbiased jury because I didn't know anything about this.
So you didn't even see like a trailer or anything for it when it was coming out, or?
I've heard a lot of younger kids talking about it, and I think it's kind of like a benchmark, and going to speak to a generation.
So you liked it that much?
Yeah, because a lot of the kids were like, okay, it's really, really good. And then I'm like, it's got to be really good for me to be interested. And
it was like when we were watching the movie, I mentioned Stranger Things, which has exploded since then. And this movie came out a year and a half before Stranger Things hit. So it was like right in the middle of their production. I wonder if this had inspired that production at all.
Oh, I think without a doubt.
Or if they just kind of happened at the same time coincidentally.
Maybe there's a correlation because Stranger Things follows this, and it's like, what's it going to pass on to? Because it was like, I really feel like Stranger Things was influenced by this and borrowed a lot of these things.
Just like the music in particular, or just the
that really stands out. But then
Stranger Things is a bit more faster paced, but it definitely hits the. Stranger Things maybe went more after the nostalgia value, whereas this kind of went more after the style value.
Like they were always, they've been working on that nostalgia for a few years, for probably since the 80s.
Yeah.
And then, this is, and this has such a more original idea overall. And I don't know, when I'm watching this, I'm thinking, how does somebody write this? And, I mean, like, I'm like remarkable about, I'm like, well, that's a filmmaker. You're in good hands with an artist when you're like, okay, because I wasn't on board at first, and I was like, I wish I would have seen this in a theater where there's excitement and people are there to get scared and they're like, ooh, all huddled up and cuddling up and like, then, you can hop on that ride a little bit with the audience. And watching this, I didn't particularly at first think much about the different crafts.
So at what point, because the movie starts, for those people who haven't seen it, who should see it, even though a lot of people who have, that I know, didn't actually end up liking the movie. But stylistically, you can't deny it's a gorgeous movie, I thought. It was shot very well.
Then once it gets going, I'm like, oh, they had language, when the camera moves and it's the character's point of view. But when you're on the character, then the camera doesn't move, It
was very deliberate movements. And
yeah.
when I remember seeing it in the theater, I just remember constantly, your eyes are scanning the entire frame you're looking for it.
Right.
Because it's out there. You don't know where it is, but you just assume it's in the background somewhere.
Right.
And I can't think of too many movies that make you do that and give you the time to sit there and watch, and see if something's coming in.
And now how great would it be to actually be in a theater with a bunch of rowdy kids who get into it, even ones, doesn't matter if they've seen it before or they've never seen it. And then I imagine that cultish excitement would take over the room, because then everybody's like, when they catch on, and then they're like being vocal, then it's probably a really fun night, because the whole room's swept up in a party atmosphere.
I can't remember. I think Mark and I went and saw this opening night at ArcLight.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm
Wow.
pretty sure that we went that night just because the trailer had a very similar style. Like the music from the movie was in the trailer, if I recall, and it just looked different, and the reviews are pretty positive, and so Mark and I
that's
will
what
tend
took
to-
you there.
we'll
You were
tend
like,
to
okay,
go
let's
to,
go
like,
there.
things that look like they're unique and original, and this is very derivative in the sense like it's a movie in the horror genre that's borrowing from a ton of different movies, but at the same time it's doing its own unique thing.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like an 80s cult
Yeah.
horror film, and yet it's not. It's got it's funny because you're right. Like when I first started watching this, I was like, you have that uneasy feeling when you're watching something, you're not sure if it's good or not.
Yeah.
Starting off the bat, and like it takes a minute for the tone to really like grow on you.
Right.
Because like when you're thrown straight into it, it can be a little
It took
jarring,
me. I
takes a
feel like it
second.
took 10, 20 minutes for me to get in.
Basically the moment I think that it starts to hit for me is when she goes on her date to the theater,
Yeah.
and she's at the date, her date, and they're playing that game where they're like, okay, I want you to pick two people in your head, and I'm gonna try and guess who those two people are that you want to be one of them,
Yeah.
or something like that. So I have two options of choosing.
Even what the guy picks out as who he wishes he could be, and what he says, like, about innocence.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, who he picks
Well,
out,
he picks the little boy. And
he
it says,
picks out something innocent.
why? Because
and like
he's got his whole life.
it's
ahead
not
of him.
touched, and he's not gotten laid. And this speaks to such a the teenagers, kids who are like, this is like, don't sleep with a girl. Right. This will like scare you. I mean, if you're a dad and you've got a kid and you're like, man, don't sleep with girls because you're gonna get knocked up. Now this movie, you can be like, don't sleep with girls because they'll do this to you. And then you can show them this movie, and that'll keep kids from having sex with other girls. It's like, remember that one horror movie where the guy's like, having sex with that chick, and like there's teeth in his. Oh, that was
It was called Teeth.
And yeah, I mean, like, even that kind of thing, I don't think that would stop some kids. But this, I mean, I don't know.
Well, the whole point, the log line of the movie, for people who haven't seen it, is basically it's almost like an STD. It's
right.
Like it's like your
it
own
is.
personal. It's
it
your own
really
personal
speaks
zombie
to that.
Yeah.
You
sleep with somebody and it just picks up and it follows you and it's gonna come after you and it's gonna keep walking towards you.
It's always interesting when they make correlations between a horror
STD
movie
and
and
zombie.
or mental illness, and there's some of that here. this paranoia, and then all that stuff that this can be something in real life, and I mean and what it's got to be like to live that way for the rest of your life, because how can you get rid of it? But like it's yeah, this speaks to a generation, and it's just kind of like when you were a kid or when we were growing up and remember other movies that were benchmarks. I mean, I remember the Blair Witch.
Oh yeah.
I really truly thought that was some high school kids that made that movie originally.
Well, that's how they pitched it. And that's how, when it came out of Sundance, everything was hush hush. Hush. I remember going to their website. They had a website up, and if you went to it, it was totally set up almost like a shitty old Netscape like page.
Oh wow!
That said,
Ingenious.
This is the story of the three filmmakers who went into the woods.
And they're
got
fake.
lost,
Right.
the
They
footage,
hid
and
all that.
We made a movie based off what we found. And like that's how they pitched it. Of course, in my mind I'm going, there's no way that's true. But there was nothing telling you that it wasn't. And it was genius until it, exploded and became huge, and then of course the word was out that, this was the work of a couple of filmmakers, and
Right.
And the
Right.
actors were on like Jay Leno and whatnot.
Yeah. But that was much, that was
It was pretty groundbreaking, and people hated that one too, for sure. Like a lot of people did.
Yeah.
But
right. As many people.
You and I sounds like we saw it kind of in the similar boat where I think I saw it opening night in Denver at the small art house theater.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had heard about the Sundance buzz and how it had scared the holy shit out of people at Sundance at the midnight screenings.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? You're at Sundance in the mountains and you go and see that. And that's basically what I had to do. I saw the movie and then I went home and I was living with my mother on 250 acres of forest land.
Yeah.
And I had to park my car and walk to this cabin.
Dude, that's already giving me goosebumps again. It's giving me goosebumps again because, like, when they're throwing rocks, when those kids... What, are you looking out the window right now? Are you scared? Are you a little scared? I mean, we are on that... You remember that movie about the Hillside Killer?
Oh, yeah.
This is the Hillside.
Oh, my God.
What's another movie that stood out to you? Is there another good horror?
Horror is an interesting one because it doesn't happen that often. But actually, I feel like it happens more often in the horror genre than any other genre. That something new comes along and kind of shifts the genre a bit. Like action movies typically stay the same. Like I haven't seen a fresh action movie in a while. Sci-fi,
no, because they put all the new filmmakers in horror. And that's where if you want to make a movie, okay, well you got to make a horror movie because it's got a chance for it to make a splash and it to be a good investment for us to have an audience with kids, with boys.
Well, it's the cheapest way I think to affect people emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Because it's not like you can make a cheap, emotionally affecting like sci-fi. Well, you can. You could do Primer or something like that. But you can't like get under people's skin necessarily.
Exactly. That's why I, was really for me to have an impact, for me to feel an impact with this movie, and I did. I didn't want it to stop because I was just like, oh, they upped that. They seemed to for a long time in this movie, and I was. I didn't feel like I was doing homework anymore. I was just like, oh yeah, now you're in the hands of a filmmaker versus just somebody who, is making content.
What are your thoughts on the ending in this movie? Because it's been kind of divisive. What I saw on the internet, like people didn't really like the ending. Like it didn't bother me.
I mean, no, that's a great ending. It's a great ending. It's part of. Boy, I mean, there were some really exciting sequences, some really scary scenes, some. I did not know. I've never seen anything like this. I've never been told a ghost story in this way, and so I was scared.
It was,
and then I was enjoying that climax each time, and then at the end, I think everybody was like, oh my gosh, that was such a rush. And I felt 3 rushes, really big rushes. And so what you are wanting that at the end almost. I mean, that's the hard part about a lot of horror movies. I think, it's like the end of Seinfeld. It's like, oh yeah, the ending, I don't really remember. Nobody really, really remembers a lot of the endings of horror movies. They talk about something, early on.
Did you see The Witch that came out basically the same year?
No.
I mean, that I remember the last iconic shot.
Should I see that one?
Definitely, you should see that one.
That's why I want to see Oculus because
Yeah, Oculus. We almost watched Oculus tonight for the crowd, but I think we'll come back to that one.
Right. It's. What about I'm wondering. I like it when I see a trailer that I'm wrapped up in the trailer, but then I'll sometimes watch the movie and it's, it was okay.
I think we are getting like a new generation of filmmakers. Now we're getting into the filmmakers that grew up with easy access to cameras. So they've been, not that usually in the past it was kind of the rich kids who
never had that.
The Super 8 cameras growing up.
That was the only way.
It was only the rich kids, with the camcorders, because it's like now, I mean, you still got to be rich, but now you can make a movie on your iPhone.
The only way I could make a movie was in film school, and when they checked out that camera out of the lab to us, it was like, oh my gosh, we've just taken the Corvette out of the garage. Dad gave us the keys. Now we can't break it.
Did you say you went to a school before AFI?
Yeah, I went to Missouri, Southwest Missouri State, which is now Missouri State.
Because you weren't able to actually take out cameras at AFI. You were just straight up editing there. Right.
I was on these productions and and we had all the cameras down the hall, so we would load up the truck. We were all crewing together. Right. We were all crewing together. I mean,
like a film school.
The editor, and sometimes, I did a little bit of everything. While I was there, from running sound to craft service to running electric or something, and but yeah, now you can strap a camera to a skateboard and throw it down the stairs, and
you still can't teach people how to do story, but you can at least hope maybe inspire somebody early on to kind of build a visual sense of how they're going to tell a story, but also tell the story.
I mean, you're given the chance to fuck up every time you go out and make it, and you're able to wreck, over and over.
Well, it's hard to be patient as a filmmaker, because you do want to, you feel like you might be boring people to death. And better than anybody, being an editor, like, it's hard to stay on a shot for a very long time. And
you really got to earn it.
And if you watch it 30 times, 40 times, 50 times, a couple hundred times when you're editing it, eventually that long take gets trimmed until you lose confidence in it. Mm-hmm. And then either you swap it out for something else, something new that's fresh.
And sometimes...
Or you revert back to the longer version. But it's hard, and this movie does so very well. It there's so many times where it just sits and the camera spins in a 360, just very slow, like we're examining the space. We're seeing
it becomes where's Waldo?
Yeah, where's Waldo?
Right.
And that's what it was.
And it's almost kind of like there's a moment or two where it's slow action, and then they're shooting high speed, and it's even in slow-mo, and I was, like, oh yeah, this is really good. This is, the longer, it's like, it's going to happen, but how long can I expand the moment? Because they're just, sitting in the gooey, man, and just like, oh yeah, this is a nice warm bath, when you've done something that charming and that unique, and that the whole audience is on a ride, and the end is like, I think it's perfect, and I mean I think there's a lot more to that ending than people realize. That the people that
who hated the ending and actually called out the director on Twitter, Quentin Tarantino. Tarantino was like, you made a genius fucking movie, and then you destroyed it with your bullshit third ending, your bullshit ending.
Wow.
To which I don't know what the filmmaker actually said, but he was like, he responded on Twitter just saying like, hey man, you're entitled to your opinion.
I mean, that is so funny, because when the dog barks at the moon, that's that old thing, but if the moon turned around and barked back at the dog, then it would be like, oh my gosh, so when Tarantino spoke up, wow, I wonder if, that's pretty awesome that even Tarantino, because he's so bloodlust, with Uma Thurman destroying everybody, and it's just like, I need more blood on my set, when he
Kill Bill.
shoots. Yeah, and so it's
right.
I don't know what made him respond that way.
Call somebody out. Like,
I would like to know his answer. I mean, like,
Yeah, where would he have taken it? I mean, I don't really care. Like, to be honest, it's obviously not. If Tarantino loved the first 2/3 of the movie, that's great. If he hated the last third, then don't throw the filmmaker.
Well, it
under
makes
the
me
bus.
wonder. Did you get it? When they
Right.
respond like that, I'm kind of like, look at it again.
Yeah, step back and watch it from a different point of view instead of his own, and But we're also talking about one of the most opinionated filmmakers in the industry.
Yeah, right. And I mean, hey, that's a really big, standing ovation from a great generational filmmaker if he's speaking out.
To be fair, people hated this, and to be honest, like the number one people the group that I felt didn't really attach to this movie was that younger millennial generation. Like a lot of the people I know who saw it, I remember we watched it. I watched it in a big group, and like most of the people at this group were probably 5 to 10 years younger than I was, and most of them checked out about halfway through, just going like, "What is this movie? Like, what are we watching?" And then like would get up and walk away. Whereas a few people stuck around and were just like enthralled.
Right.
It's a slow burn, and
right.
like you said, it's like it's not. Everything is cut now, or
right.
Let's speed
right.
through it. Let's carry everything along, and it doesn't. This is all about building the tension and making you suffer.
I mean, they can walk away all they want because they're the friends they would talk to about this movie with them later. Those friends that did stick around would be like, "Oh, you left? You are an idiot." You just wasted your time. You got to go back and do it again because that's my favorite movie of the year. A lot of kids.
This actually was my favorite movie of that year, and I can't remember what else came out, but this was my number one, and I think this was 2015. It was a slow year to be sure, but no other movie made me want to go out and see this a few times, and it sucked because I recommended a few people to go see it, and I was like, "Oh, you got to see this movie," and they came out of it and were like, "Chad, what were you thinking? That movie was terrible." Like, that was one thing I didn't understand. Like, it wasn't like a movie that you could blatantly say, "Go see this," because it's a little strange. The setup's a little strange. The music cues are a little strange. The tone is strange. But I think that's exactly what I loved about the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's just how different it was. Like, it felt like an 80s movie, but it felt modern and current and high quality and had great cinematography, which I'm a sucker for immediately. Typically.
I don't know how you...
I thought
I feel like if you're not... If you don't like this, you're not, interested, or I really got to be harsh to people. I want to be... harsh at critics of this because
that might be half our audience.
It's I would like to know what they why. I'm just like perplexed at why you say anything poorly about this, kind of like saying anything bad about Rosemary's Baby, or I mean, I'm there. I'm right there right now, ready to put it in that, or The Shining. It's just like, because, The Shining is slow as fuck too,
yeah.
and
it's like Alien, a lot of people check out of that.
Yeah, man, that's a good movie to just like kick back and open, make yourself a cocktail while it's starting, because it's...
How'd you feel about the acting?
I didn't really think anything's really, really special. I don't really feel like... I just think it's well cast, well done. I mean, the kid who played Paul, I thought he was really good.
Yeah.
And...
I think he was the only one that I really recognized outside of this, like I've seen him in some other stuff. You know, nobody in this movie really has broken out and become a star. Maika Monroe, she played Bill Pullman's daughter in the Independence Day 2, the new Independence Day. Yeah.
Oh.
So like she got a big role out of that, but that movie flopped, so who knows. But
I mean, yeah, like the cool thing about the great cast is they fit together like a puzzle, but then also she, you know, our main character, she sneaks up on you. Here's the thing about her. You think that she's very American, Midwestern, you know, girl, like in Aurora, Missouri. You know, she could be anywhere. They're in Detroit, but she could have been, you know, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, or Peoria, Illinois. And those girls are going to relate to her, but she's not going to she doesn't jump off the screen in the beginning. Mm-hmm. But then when you stick around, you know,
you see her doing some of the harder acting. People, that's some of the hardest acting, to pretend like you're terrified of something. And
when everyone literally is looking at her, like
she's such an introspective character, like actor. You can watch her and you can see the mind is churning. Like her mind is constantly going, and especially when she breaks down, when she runs upstairs and locks herself in the bedroom, you know, before all her friends come upstairs, like she has a total meltdown.
It's like, and she's having to act with herself.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if they put the terror balloon outside for her or something to, you know, but you're right, you know, and she's acting she's having a conversation by herself. And she's just, you know, terrified, you know, and it's really good. It tells you, you know, boy, I'm glad my wife left tonight's podcast when she did. If she had stayed 5 more minutes, it would have been
Danielle
over.
Pieced out about 10 minutes in. Well, actually,
right.
My Blu-ray disc had a scratch in it. Apparently, I've never even watched this one, so we had to stop and clean that off.
And it was, I mean, that was almost the poltergeist in your Blu-ray machine.
I think it was
helping my wife, you know, exit,
find the moment to leave.
The Frady, you know, grab the Frady bar and go out the door.
She couldn't even watch the beginning just because of the tension.
Oh my God, she couldn't. It's always funny, and she literally will be the one to scream the loudest in a theater. And it's always a trip when people are scared. It's always pretty awesome. And I grow up in a place where there's a lot of ghost stories that you tell. And I've heard so many about things that happened in the neighborhood. And we had Ether Eddie. We have to talk about Ether Eddie. We had Ether Eddie. I mean,
now you're
real life.
Now you're reminding me of some ghost stories from school.
But. Yeah, that's what's really cool about it. A good horror movie, a good scary movie. I don't even, because is this a horror movie? Is it just scary? I mean, like,
yeah, it's definitely a horror film, but it's a different style.
Man, Ether Eddie,
what was Ether Eddie?
He would break into homes. And he put ether
in Missouri,
in Springfield, Missouri, and put some ether on a handkerchief and knock out girls and then kind of watch them sleep. They always said that they just watch them sleep and then kind of like drift off, and they'd wake up.
They wouldn't do anything. You would just watch.
Yeah, and which makes me think, bullshit. He did something, or something went on there. I don't know. I mean,
that's almost more terrifying than,
because even I remember running around once on a street called Lone Pine, and which is a scary street name. And my cousin, we're out, you know, at dark in the summer, and he's under a street light, and he's like, dude, we better get home because Ether Eddie's gonna get you, you know. And I was like, you know, And I mean, that was the first ghost story I heard at the age of 6.
Jesus.
You know, yeah. So,
just the name of that belongs in the movie.
I don't know why it hasn't just blown.
Was that a big thing? I mean, obviously, I'm sure it was a big thing in your community at the time, but was it big nationally, or was it just?
It really wasn't. No, isn't that crazy?
I think
but then
we've gave the audience like an idea to go write about.
I don't know. You can find it on the internet. And I'm like, oh, does this thing really exist? And I Googled it. And yes, there it is. And it's been in a book or two here or there, but they've been small books. And I think maybe self-published even. And,
well, in fourth grade, I had Mr. Tom was our fourth grade teacher, and he used to come in, and he had some fucked up stories. He would... I don't think he's a school teacher anymore. That's why I'm able to tell this now, because I feel like he'd lose his job. He used to come in, and all the kids would be like, "Hey, tell us that one story about that the time you saw the ghost in the river." And he'd be like, "Oh no, I can't tell that story." And then the next day he'd show up with a 16mm projector, and he would just be like, "Okay, well, so what we were doing, we were up in Montana or Idaho, and we were on this lake and this river, and this river was known for this man that was killed, like he was scalped by the Indians, you know, and like he haunted the river." You know, all the kids are like, "Oh, that's so cool, like creepy, weird."
Yeah.
And he's like, "But one day we were filming, and then this happened." And like he starts playing the 16mm film to a bunch of fourth graders, and I just remember it was like, you know, they're in a boat floating down a river, you know, in the forest, and he's like aiming the camera up at some birds flying around, you know, and like he pans down. There's some people in the boat, and like, you know, he's in the boat. He's one of the people on the boat, and then like, the camera kind of jerks and like aims down the river, or like across, like it's a pretty wide river, and he aims over by like the riverbed, and you just see this skeletal looking creature thing stand up out of the water. And it was like, for fourth graders, like we were like, "Oh fuck,
that's perfect." He just showed you the horror movie,
and basically, like, you know, it was like we watched it, and the camera's like jittering, and it was clear like there was no sound. You know, it was just the sound of the click, 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 click of the 16mm going through the projector. Right. And like, you get a hint of like this thing that looks like rotting flesh over a skeleton, and it's still kind of fat. You know, it's not like thin; you can't see through it or anything. And it's like, you know, white skin, and it's like, and then you just. The film, you know, goes away, of course, and he's like, "Yeah, and that's you know, we saw it and we got out of there as fast as we could, right? And this is all that we have, this film, you know." And we're like, "Oh, yeah, man, I'm not scared of that at all." And then the next week and a half, like the cool kids and I are like, "Hey, were you looking over your shoulder like all day?" I'm like, "I was scared shitless." "Yeah, what about you?" "I was scared shitless too." You know, and like. I feel like if that happened now, there would be like lawsuits. Right. This was like 1994. I guess it was 94. No, this would have been 1990. Just thinking about like, you know, and then a week later he came in and told us another story about how he had been riding a bike or something on Mount Evans up in Colorado. Yeah. And like he heard something yelling at him, and he looked and he saw the devil running naked along the mountainside and ran down the mountain after him. What? And he had to speed away on his bike. This is what he told the students, and he was such a funny guy that I don't think any of us really thought that he was serious, but he was so like adamant about the way he was saying things that like, and his film, we watched that film like 12 times in a row, and I was like sitting there like trying to study it and like determine if it was fake or whatever. But I mean, we're fourth graders, like I was 10 years old, 9 years old.
I know what that thing was that was chasing him. That was that was Jerry Garcia on some on Wacky Tobacco. He's running down the hill.
Yeah,
from
Red Rocks.
When he was higher than He was chasing his tour
bus. That was
bus.
an interesting class. Mr. Tom, coincidentally, also that was the year that Simpsons started airing, and that's how I saw The Simpsons, because
he brought that.
None of the kids were allowed to watch it at home because it was too risque for families. Isn't it mind blowing how Simpsons was considered risque at the time, like to show kids? Like, I don't know about your family, but mine was like, oh, I don't know about that. Like, this kid talks back to his father and Bart Simpson, and But
oh my gosh,
he showed us our first few episodes from season 1 of The Simpsons, and it was different times for sure. But well, I think we're should probably wrap it up. But,
okay. Yeah, it's bedtime.
Any last
It's bedtime.
words?
Sleep if you can. Nope. See you at the movies.
Yep, I think that's about it, and we'll see you next week, and maybe Mark will be back. Maybe not. Who knows? Maybe Byron will be back.
Maybe.
We'll see you later.
We'll send some girls in.
Yeah. We'll have an all-female cast next week.
Yeah.